Welcome back. Another episode of RX Radio. Honor and a privilege today to get to sit down with Luka Hocevar. I never say his name right. Luka, dude, that's my bad. I grew up with enough Eastern Europeans. You'd think I'd have it figured out by now. But so Luka, owner of Vigor Ground Fitness in Slovenia and in the Pacific Northwest up there in Renton. Luka he's always someone, and I mentioned this off the jump in the episode, that whenever I think I'm doing a lot, I just look at Luka and he's doing way more. And we talk about what that way more consists of in the episode today. You know, Luka is one of the people in the industry that, as far as sticking with the craft of coaching, like he even makes this point in the episode. And there's this notion that you need to like grow out of coaching as you evolve in the fitness business. And it's something that he's the cornerstone of what he loves to do, and all of his business radiate out from that single point. So it's really cool to see someone who's 20 years in, who still gets the reps in, who still prioritizes that as sort of the lifeblood of his business. So huge shout out to Luka for coming on and just offering up what little time he has to chat with us. Episode full of gems. Definitely have a listen if you haven't heard anything from Luka. You probably have. But sometimes you don't need to learn; you need to be reminded. And he's really good at synthesizing information around productivity, prioritization, training. He's just probably one of the more well-rounded business owners I know in the fitness space, and that stems out from that coaching piece, which I think so many people lack. So huge thanks to Luka again for coming on. PSL 1. Okay, we're going to do a little bit. We're going to do this. If you haven't taken the course before, the only way to get into the course, go to the website right now. The registration is closed. We're on a wait list. www.pre-script.com. Go to PSL1. Type your email in the wait list. We will send you an email when the registration opens. Now, there's a couple caveats to this. Not caveats. Chiropractors. If you're a chiropractor and you listen to this podcast and you know chiropractors or you have a chiropractor, we are finally accredited for continuing education units through the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners. So if you're a chiropractor and you're listening to this, hello, hi, how are you? Hope all is well. We have, so you guys are familiar with the CEU, the way it works in our profession. You need 24 annually, 12 you can do online. We have CEUs that will cover you for the entire 12 online. So if you go put your name on the waitlist, www.pre-script.com, PSL1, join the waitlist. First notified September 29th, I believe, or 30th is going to be the start date. So we have some exciting stuff coming up with the U.S. military as well. If you guys are former Army veterans, military veterans, we got some exciting stuff coming this semester. And if you're just a person who's a coach or a fitness enthusiast and want to learn more about applied biomechanics, functional anatomy, progressions, regressions, optimizations, adaptations, and the like, head on over to Prescript and get your name on that wait list. Registration will be opening shortly. Also, the opt-in list is the only way to get a discount on the course. So get your name on the wait list. We'll hit you up in a couple of weeks, and then we're going to get started with this next semester here in September. Very excited about that. So huge thanks again to Luka. Kairos, you know what to do. Tell your friends. If you're tired of the terrible online CEUs that you've been forced to take a cool one with me and Jay and Killian and Jorge and all the boys and Mac and Thayer and so on and so forth. So that's been approved. Really excited that that's come through. Again, just hit the opt-in list on the website, and we'll see you guys in class in September. Enjoy the episode with Luka. Check out all the links in the show notes, and we'll see you guys next week.
You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Like whenever I'm like, whenever I'm having that moment, that pre-record moment where I log on and Lucas just got the head in the hands, like, oh, dude, it's a Friday. I just go on IG and I just go, Hocevar. Oh, there he is. I'm like, oh, he's like on his 4th flight this week. I got more in the tank, man. You've figured out a way. I feel like you find more hours in the day than other people do.
I mean, look, so you've probably experienced this, right? I'm like 10 times more productive than I was, 5 years, 7 years ago, right? But I still feel like I could be significantly more productive. And what you realize is that, especially in business, there's so much busy work that when you track, just like you track your nutrition, track your training, when you start tracking your time, the first person that made me do that was I think Craig Ballantyne, where it's just like, hey man, just go through about a week and just start writing down everything you do, right? 30-minute increments, hour increments, just kind of have like your time, and when I did it, I started going like, holy shit, like there's a lot of stuff that I do that's busy, but not like what did this achieve? I started looking at it, go like, what did these 2 hours right here achieve? And I'm like, nah, not really much. Like it really didn't turn a dial on the business or my life or anything, right? And you start being aware of it, right? Because to me, awareness precedes change, and then assessment precedes awareness, right? So to me, that was the assessment. And you start going through the week and you go, holy shit, I'm spending a lot of time like working, but what is it doing for the, like, what's the target that I want to achieve? What is it doing? And it's that awareness, like, man, I'm like wasting a lot of time. So I started becoming better at like, maybe I can outsource this to somebody, take editing YouTube videos, which by the way, I don't do. I attempted that many years ago. I was like, okay, bye-bye. Like somebody else can do it way better. Same thing with, even just work. There'd be like, man, I'm doing this work, but this is not generating more leads or income. Is this making me or my team better at the coaching aspect? All these different things that really are just not leading anywhere. So you start chopping it down, and I started becoming better at just making every day count, and for me, that's a lot of things. I'll get up in the morning and I might, have a mini email or call with the team. Okay, what are the KPIs of the gym at, right? But like, then it's like, oh, I got a webinar for business coaching. Cool. Now I got an hour. I'm going to work on content, and that might be YouTube content. It might be writing an email. It might be social media, but it's blocked out. Like it's this is what I'm doing. Okay, now I'm at the gym. I got 2 hours of NFL guys. Okay, cool. Now I got a 3-hour window. I'm going to train for an hour and a half myself. Then I got an hour and a half. I'm going to check in with Pat. What's going on with the sales. Here's the campaign for text messaging follow up with these folks. Okay, boom. Now we're at 5 p.m., 5 to 8. I'm coaching again. 8 o'clock. Okay, cool. Now we got dinner. I might do another hour of study. But that's literally, my day. Like the night before, I know exactly what's going to happen and where it's leading. And look, I fuck around too, meaning like lose track of time, spend too much time on social, whatever it may be. But I think that's the key, man. Like, I don't know if you ever heard this analogy. This was like a really powerful analogy for me, was the watch and the wallet analogy, right? Like you're committed to your watch and your wallet. My watch is my schedule, right? That's my calendar. So people say a lot of different shit like, oh yeah, I'm really committed to this and that. Cool, let me check your calendar. And then it's like, it's not on there. Well, if it's not on there, it's not important. You're not committed to that. And, when people start analyzing that, a lot of times they start realizing like, man, I say I'm committed to this, but really what my calendar is showing is I'm committed to something else. And then the wallet is the investment part, right? Like, where do you put your money? I'm really committed to education. Oh, what mentorships, coaching, continuing ed have you done in the last year and a half? Like, not much. Okay, cool. So you're not, right? And it could be, again, like I'm committed to my health. And, again, you look at the wallet, but hey, you're going out 4 days a week, drinking this, that, the other. So those are the like big realizations that I think anybody, whether it's health or business, same thing, same filter, right, goes, where you start getting the smack in the face of like, hey, what are you really doing? And I try to do that consistently to, keep myself in check so that the things that I do in a day matter, towards the things that I want to achieve. And like I said, personal life, health, fitness, business, the whole shebang, right?
How do you audit now compared to how do you audit before? Like, is it still the watch and the wallet? Because now it sounds like you're pretty, like, I know you, I've seen you move. Like, I know you're like, you got it dialed in, but I know you're probably not also ever happy with what you've, like, not, maybe happy is the wrong word, but like you're always looking to find ways to improve. Where do you look to find those now? Like, is it the same as it was 5 years ago? Like, do you have to dedicate more time? No. Is it less time? Is it intuitive? How do you figure out where to look?
It's definitely different. So here's why it's different. Because I think as the further you go in your career, you've probably experienced this too, where you go, you find more of what your genius is, what you're best at, what energizes you. And I'm like, okay, I want to spend more time there, which means that the other things, is the tagline of who, not how. That's a big part for me now. So who, not how is, okay, like right now, trying to hire 2 part-time coaches for vigor because, again, we got really good growth. And my whole premise is, okay, they got great personalities, again, culture fit, and then I can coach them up on the systems and everything else, right? That's my best use of time. Cool. I love doing that. I'm great at that. The hiring part, that's, I don't want to be the point man for those things. So there's other people to do that, right? So who, not how. By the end of the year, I want to have a specific manager in place. Who, not how, because that's what I've realized with time is not my gift. Operations and management is not my gift. Leadership education, yes, absolutely, right? And being the technician and then teaching that stuff, absolutely great use of my time. So with at the beginning, and let me compare like beginning of career, like, or kind of like the middle of career, you're doing it like you're busting your ass on coaching, 12 hours per day. And then, you're doing admin shit and CC rejects and blah, 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 blah. And then you go like, oh man, let me get somebody to do that. And the further you go along, right, like you start realizing that there's that who, not how is, which is a super simple Dan Sullivan book, but I just like the tagline, right? Because it's like, I'm not going to learn all these hows. Like somebody else is better than that at me. And I need to find that person. And today, you got my editor for YouTube stuff and creatives is in the Philippines, right? Like we have about a bunch of people that like are outsourced that can do things faster than you, better than you, cheaper than you. And if you're a coach, it might be like, I don't know, let's say you charge $150 a one-on-one session, or, you make $200 per semi-privates. And there's somebody that can, edit your videos or do admin for $12 because they're in a fit. Like, I don't know, like the physical therapy clinic we have in-house, they have two, I would say assistants in the Philippines that are, crushing it, like doing great work. Right. So, but they figured out who, same thing for me, who, so I can dive in further into the thing that's my genius and my craft. And the thing that like, I'm just obsessed with, and I'm a pretty obsessive personality. So I think that goes for anybody. It just a question is like, what's the thing you got to get rid of first, right? Because if some, people are always like, hey, Luke, I just started my gym business, like, what should I do? And I'm like, well, you're going to have to do some shit, like you're going to have more on your plate at the beginning, but let's be real. Like admin should probably be the first thing you outsource. Coaches do what? I'm going to get another coach. I'm like, you got an admin? No, that's dumb. Like get an admin. Like, do you like doing emails and calling people and doing like CC, reject stuff and doing billing and stuff? No, I hate that shit. Okay, cool. I mean, like, right? But do you love coaching? Absolutely. I fucking love coaching. Great, coach more. So I think that, but as you go along, for me now, it's like, well, I got, I own a building, and so I'm a landlord. Having somebody now that kind of starts managing all of that, right? And then again, managing the gym more. Then online, I found some really good people that build the back end, the websites, the emails, the autoresponders, the Facebook ads, right? Because otherwise you are completely like ripped to tethers, what I'm saying? Because you can't do it all. And I think as you progress in your career, you just start finding, you've seen those circles and shit, right? Like where it's like thing that you love doing, thing that you're great at, thing that the world needs, right? The intersection of that. I mean, corny as it may be, like there's truth to that. Right. Find that and fucking, go deep.
I think one of the many things that's unique about you is that you haven't even entertained the idea, and it seems like you curated a culture that feels the same way. But it's like most people now, as they develop through business, one of the things that they feel that is the thing on the chopping block that they want to get rid of and that they might not love the most, that they do want to delegate, is the actual coaching piece. That's the one thing I'm always blown away with you is that your schedule of actual coaching. Like, because you use the words like, what do I love and what energizes me? And at no point have you talked about money in this equation yet. But in the business coaching space, how often is it that you're running into people who really want to outsource that core product? And how do you feel about that when people are like, look, I just want to like own the gym, run the gym, but I don't actually want to coach?
Ooh, this was the question I was waiting for. All right, so I got into this because of coaching. I am an entrepreneur at heart for sure, but I fucking love coaching. Now, I can't tell anybody like what you should want in your life, right? But you probably have heard this a lot. This is such a weird, a weird question in our field, right? Like it would be crazy to ask like an accountant, like, so you're going to be doing accounting when you're like 55? And I'd be like, dude, that's fucking a stupid question. But in fitness, it's like, oh, so you can be coaching when you're 50, 55? Right? It's a very, very, very weird thing. As if, I don't know, that there's this progression to the, to coaching. Now it can be, I think business ownership can be a thing that, look, like now I just want to be an owner. I want to have more freedom. But what I found is I went 2 years, year and a half, where the only coaching I was doing was like, elite athletes, high level executives, wasn't running a lot of classes, barely any like semi-private, any of that stuff. Right. And I was losing my mind, and I built the business, but I was just like, I got into it for coaching, and I'm really missing coaching. And I started coaching more, and I was like, oh man, this is what I love doing. So that's my first thing. Like, when my basketball career was done, and I played 3 years pro, right? Think about it. If you play, LeBron, which is insanity, right? He's 39, still doing what he's doing. But let's say he retires at 40 and 41. He's got half of his life left, right? There's a point in time where that you cannot get better as an athlete. Performance starts dropping, reflexes, whatever else it may be, okay? What I realized for coaching, I was like, when do you stop getting worse as a coach? Fucking like I can continue getting better for forever, pretty much, right? And that to me was exciting. And that to me was really I've been doing it for 20 years, but I know a shit ton of stuff, but I also kind of feel dumb, and I'm always learning, and it's cool. Like I'm curious. It's exciting. It keeps me kind of energized. And then I coach people in the lab, and that's where, to me, where the real stuff happens. Not just me getting better because I'm applying what I'm learning, but also like the feedback from people. And again, people may feel a different way. I don't ever get tired when I see somebody succeed at something, like get their first pull-up, drop 30 pounds, pant sizes, blood work is incredible. Guy signs another big contract, like, hey, this person's had back pain forever and is out of back pain. They're like, oh my God, I'm about to, like, I never go like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years, heard this 1,000 times. Like, I'm always like, it's the first time. It's fuck, dude, it's so cool to me, right? So I don't really see when people are like, hey, when you look forward, like, what do you see yourself doing on the coaching side? I'm like, I don't know, like next 5-10 years, like I see myself coaching. I might, bring the hours down a little bit and change shit and whatever, but I don't see myself stop doing it. So, I say this for anybody that's listening that might have heard this idea that like, you have to get out, oh, you've been doing it for this long, so you got to open up a gym. Listen, that shit's hard as fuck, like being a small business owner is hard as fuck. And by the way, it may be for you and it might be the thing that you're pulled to, but I've seen so many people that think that there's like this next step that they have to do, where when I started, so many things were not available that are today. I mean, like us doing this, crazy, like social media, being able to have content, an online program and do this, that, and the other, semi-private training wasn't popular. I created a course on small group personal training that literally was made because I was like, hey, like you could do 6 to 8 hours of small group training and it could probably take off 50% of your one-on-one semi-private load so that you can make the same amount of money in that time, right? And it'll help you without burning out and making good money. And right, like all these things are available today that weren't a long time ago. But man, the craft of coaching is fucking, to me, it's the best job in the world. Like, and yes, I have different hats. I got the Luka, gym owner hat. I got the Luka coach hat. I got the Luka speaker hat, brand stuff, all this other shit. Like, but at heart, I'm a coach. And by the way, like, I truly believe that, like, how do you, people are always like, well, how do you make it online or do this, that, and the other? I still believe that, like, man, become phenomenally fucking great at what you do. Like, and then, share the stuff that you're doing. Like, I think that's the best way long-term to go, rather than trying to like game the algorithm and fucking, get some viral thing going and do weird shit. Like, man, be phenomenal at what you do.
What was the first branch? You talk about all of those different offshoots and all those different like verticals in your business or within your business. What for you was like, what was the roadmap to go from coach to, and this is no particular order, obviously, coach to landlord to business owner to online to coaching coaches to coaching athletes and high end, like what was the trajectory from just like, okay, I got out of playing ball, I like coaching, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be really fucking good at it. What were then the different revenue streams you started to create and sort of like the order that those came about?
Yeah, so a little context, right? Well, I was still playing pro, training people when I was in Slovenia, and that's where we started the gym. So our Slovenian gym's been around for 18 plus years now. And then about 9 months in, I left, and it was because I was married. My then wife was living in America, in Seattle, and Renton, so that's why I came here. And then I had to kind of start. So I built a bit of a name there. And at that point in time, by the way, like there was no gym like ours in industry, because we were a coaching gym that were charging monthly, right? That didn't exist in Slovenia. And then I came here and had to start from scratch. So I kind of made a little bit of a name there. Started from scratch, started LA Fitness, just working absurd hours, like absurd, and kind of had to build it back up. Now, I knew that I wanted to build a gym just like we started the gym in Slovenia. But the journey was like, get really, really busy with clients at these big box gyms. From there, I went to this place called Vision Quest, hustle my face off there, like became kind of like the number one coach with the most coaching hours. I started basically, at least in Washington State, like I started boot camps inside of a big box gym that were on EFT, on recurring revenue, which at that point in time was like unheard of, right? Essentially, imagine somebody paying for $20 a month for a gym membership, and then inside of there, I had a boot camp, and it was $85 a month for like 2 times a week, and everybody was like, "Dude, that nobody does that. That doesn't work." And I was like, "Let me try it," and we tried it, and it crushed it. And that gym, Vision Quest, eventually ended up acquiring another 14, 15 gyms and sold to LA Fitness for like 38 million. And I helped build that model within it. Now, I ain't make any of that money, but I'm still really good friends with the owner because, helped him do that. But my point being is everything was proof of concept, right? Like, so get busy with clients, be packed, start boot camps. Those were packed. And then I got a little garage gym. It was like 2 weeks into the recession. It was 2008. I just had this gut feeling. I got to go with this. It was about 950 square feet. I could afford it, kinda. Everything was used equipment, stuff I kind of gathered over time. So, my all-in investment for that spot was like $7,000, right? It was bare bones. If you go back and watch YouTube videos, it's kind of funny, but it was because it had no windows, black mold and shit. It was like, but it had character. And dude, the results were nuts, right? Like people were getting crazy results. The culture was amazing. So I was there for about 3 years, but that was the progression model, right? So coach, be super, super busy. I opened that spot about 30 minutes away from where I was coaching. I was doing both. So I'd get up in the morning, 4:45, run, group class, train a couple semi-private clients, drive to Vision Quest, coach 10 to 12 hours there, come back, train high school, college athletes, get my own session in, write a blog post, go to sleep at 1 or 2. Not recommended, right? But it's what I knew. It's like I was just like, man, I gotta make this happen, and I was married, I had to pay a lot of bills, this, that, the other. And as the garage gym got busier, I kind of started pulling back my schedule at Vision Quest, to where at the end it was like 2, 3, 2.5 days a week. Eventually, completely flipped when it was at the moment in time that I was just like, hey, I can eat more than ramen noodles, pay rent, and like we can survive. It's when I cut it and I just went balls to the wall, all in, and then really grew that place. And then went from that 900 square foot gym to 4,700 square feet. Now, year 1 into that place, I was churning. It was very, 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 like, I believe probably per square foot, one of the most profitable gyms at that point in time. And that's when, people were like, dude, how did you do this? How are you doing this? How are you? And I felt honestly very reluctant to teach people business because I was like, oh man, I don't think I'm doing that well. There's people probably fucking doing way better. So I had no idea, right? And I joined a mastermind that was like a lot of, at that point in time, like people I looked up to, the Mike Robertsons, Eric Cressy's, Pat Rigsby's thing. And, I'd sit there in a mastermind and actually it was like that last year of me still being in a garage. And I would share like the numbers we're doing and what my expenses were, and everybody was like, what? Like, dude, like you're, because I was like, well, I'm probably not doing that good. Like, And they're like, dude, like you're printing money. Like we're, our expenses are super high. Like you're fucking like making crazy money, right? So it gave me a little more confidence that when I transitioned to the next gym and we were doing really well, I initially was like, you know what? I've helped a lot of people for free, just giving them advice. Let me launch this thing. And it was local. So I was like, hey, I'm going to take on 5-6 coaches. I'm going to help them with their business. I think I charged like $400 or $500 a month, not that much. And got people real quick. Cool story is that like out of those people, there's like 3 are still in business, killing it, which is pretty fucking cool. But I helped those people significantly grow their business. And that gave me, again, proof of concept. It gave me confidence. Like, man, like I'm good at this stuff. And basically about 2-3 years into that second gym is when, like me and Steve Krebs, which is one of my partners, one of my best friends, that we started like, it used to be called The Pack. Now it's Yoga Gym, which is our consulting business. Right. So that kind of came about more organically. Like, hey, I'm really good at this thing. And then I would talk about what I'm doing. And then people were like, dude, show me. Right. And then I did a little kind of beta. Let me see how this works out. And it did. And it gave me confidence. And that's how the business consulting grew, which has now been 11 years, I think. And so, if you look at these transitions, it's like do something really good, build confidence that you can help others with it, and then kind of, scale and pour fuel on the fire. Now, the buying the building thing, I knew I was like, long term, like this is the industry I want to be in the long term. What makes sense? Like if I'm going to own a gym, like the moment that I can buy a building to be in, it now goes to, this is the kind of good debt versus bad debt conversation, right? Like I'm not paying for a lease, I'm paying for equity. And I'm kind of, putting into my own bank account. Yes, you got, interest and all that and whatnot. So what I did early, and this is what I recommend for people, I think that people start too late. Way before I could afford it, I started looking at like what, a $8,000 to $12,000 type of building that could be a fit cost. And I'd see the numbers, I go to my accountant, go to the bank. The bank is like, well, we'll loan you this much. I'm like, ooh, shit. I'm not even close. I go to my accountant be like, hey, listen, you got to be doing these numbers and, your income has to be this and this has to happen. And, then we could kind of look at SBA or whatever. So when I found that out, like it created a target for me. I was like, and this was a meaningful thing. I'm looking at like long-term investment and security for my family and career and everything else. So man, on a whiteboard, I'm like, in my office, those numbers are on there. Like a whole vision was written out, like the building, what's going to be in it, the whole shebang. I got a cool story, like AJ Roberts, who's a good friend of mine. AJ, one of the top powerlifters, used to be one of the top powerlifters in the world. He came by, I was helping him up with some mobility and stuff. And he's like, oh, dude, what's that on your whiteboard? I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going to build, dude. I'm going to buy this building. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Did it. And he's like, man, that's cool. Okay, cool. 6 years later, AJ's at the grand opening of the gym. And he walks in and he's like, dude, you remember? I said, well, remember what? It's like, fucking dude, like you had this written on your whiteboard. And I was like, oh shit, I did, right? It gave me a target. It gave me like this target. I called it Tomorrowland, right? Like, and I just wrote everything out in detail. And I was like, so now every month I'm like pushing for certain numbers, right? Because it's like, hey, this is getting me closer to that thing. And we ended up figuring out, bought the building, did construction. I've been in here now for almost 8. I think in January it's going to be 8 years since I bought the building. So it panned out. But again, I do think that people don't give enough power to the power, the power of targets, like meaningful targets. Like, hey, this is where I want to go. It's like a GPS, you are here, point A, point B, where do you want to get to? And then there's a path, and there's obviously like the path of like, hey, fastest route to point B, most scenic route to point B. Oh, fucking detour, there's plenty of those. But it's like you're going there. And that was kind of like the idea. And in the midst of it all, because I think this is an important factor. I started going, and this is the power of seminars, conferences, events, mentors. Do you know who Ryan Lee is? Okay, no. Cool. Ryan Lee's like way back in the day. Ryan Lee was like the first guy that did fitness marketing online shit. Like this is straight up like 17, 18 years ago. He has this thing called Ryan Lee Bootcamp. Many people that are very, very well established in the industry went to that boot camp back in the day. But the reason I say this is because that also made me start thinking about like online, right? And I remember YouTube was such in its like kind of beginning stages. And I'm at this event. It's like, hey, YouTube's going to be a thing. And just as a very side hustle, not like I want to be a YouTuber because that didn't even fucking exist back then. But it was like, all right, man, I'm just going to shoot content of my training, and I wasn't good at speaking and, being in front of the camera. So if you go back like 15 years back on YouTube, because that's when I started shooting, it's like no shit. Like it's like, hey, I'm Luka. This is hard workout. I fucking lift a lot of weight. Like that was the content, right? But I started posting it, and it started got me going into the idea of like content. So I started, back then it was a lot of blogging. So I wrote a lot of blogs, my own blogs. Eventually, I said bigger sites asked me to write. It was like, cool, awesome. You didn't really make any money for it, but it got the name out. It got me at like being able to distill my training philosophy and the things that I was thinking about. And the reason I share this is because now people are like, oh man, you got a pretty damn big YouTube channel and podcasts and this, that, and the other. But that's been like this, 15, 10, 8-year trajectory of creation that now is kind of, coming together and actually being able to be monetized. Because folks are always like, what should I focus on? And we can kind of dive into this because I think there is an important thing to talk about, right? I think that if you do content right, it can make you a better coach, right? Like if you got to write an article about your philosophy, Jordan, about training athletes, or maybe it's something even more specific, dude, you're gonna have to distill that into headlines, subheadlines, organize your thoughts. Like, yeah.
Yeah. All right, here, hold on. I got one of them right here. Fuck, I hate this fucking thing.
Right, and dude, and that's a perfect example, right? Like you the way that you create it, which fucking, I always say that, like, Prescript is one of the, like, my foundational things that everybody should take as a certification because it's that fucking good. But it's like you have to keep distilling to get there to this product, to this organized thing. Well, content does that, right? Like I don't know. I've written hundreds and hundreds of blog posts. I've got 1,900 videos on YouTube. I've done 400 or 500 episodes of podcasts and blah, 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 spoke on 300-400 times on stage, whatever it may be. Right. And it's like, it went from, as Dave Tate would say, from shit to suck to good to great, and you have to keep distilling that. And then you got something. And then people, I think that the proof of concept thing, even for social media, is key, because like you give valuable, useful stuff, and people are like, man, I like your shit, I want more. Cool. That's how I did online programs or courses. People would keep hitting me up like, dude, I want to buy something from you. I'm like, I got nothing to sell you. Right. And then eventually it was like, maybe I should get something that would fucking to sell people to give them even more of what they want. And I know that kind of went a little bit all over the place, but hopefully that kind of timeline is like, look, my first 10 years, all I gave I'm obsessed with being the best coach and obviously building the best gym. Now that continued, but along the way, it was like, hey, help me be a great coach and build a gym. Okay. Right. Along the way, it was like, hey, love your training style. I'd love to get a training program from you. Shit, I don't have anything online. Okay, let's do that. Right. Like, hey, your small group stuff is fucking fire. Do you have a course? Ooh, shit, I don't. Maybe I should make one. Right. But everything went from, I'm doing the thing and the thing fucking works and I want to keep doing the thing better. And then let me share that thing with the world. Because there was a point in time where I was like, dude, I don't want to have like a franchise of gyms, because I'm in the coaching space. Like, I want to keep getting better at the thing. And the thing is, the moment you got to manage this guy in operations and franchises, dude, you just less energy to be better at the craft. Now, if that's what you want to do, cool. I'm not judging you. Like, you got to know who you are, and you got to know what the fuck you want to be and who you want to become. And that starts kind of like determining, your behaviors and your actions and the way your day looks like.
If you were to start tomorrow like all over. Like we Men in Black brainwash you back to like a blank slate. And you have like your life experiences, and you're already a great coach. Let's solve for that variable first. So I'm certain that there's a lot of great coaches out there who struggle. That's usually who struggles, right? Like this day and age, it's usually like the technician on the gym floor that's like dialed, knows how to communicate, runs an unbelievable session. This is the guy that started to look around and go, or girl that looks around and goes like, okay, like now what? I still want to get better. I still want to do this. I want to expand my reach, my business, whatever. Like, where would you start today?
I still think, so number one, if I were to get a gym, okay, I'll give two scenarios because I like scenarios, right? Like nothing is set in stone. There's so many different examples. Today, you can lease a space there's so many places that you can go to, cool gyms that you can pay and just lease to coach people out of, right? Very viable business. And like, let me throw some numbers out there, by the way, too. All right. If you get 25 semi-private coaching clients that pay you $400 a month, you're doing 120 grand a year. You can service that, by the way, in like 16 hours a week. Okay. Means you got quite a bit of time left. So in that time, like you can do a bunch of different things, like maybe get more clients, get your revenue even higher, maybe create a small group. And then when you're making, when you have that proof of concept, at the same time, I'd be creating valuable educational stuff online. Now, I wouldn't spend all day like doing this shit, like but when people are like, I don't have time for that, I'm like, duh, you're so full of shit. You can shoot videos in 30 minutes, 20 minutes per day. That's something valuable, and you don't need editors. By the way, I got like editors in this. The videos that pop off the most is just me shooting some shit off my phone, like filming a client or filming myself, So there's no excuse for that one. And just every day start, again, sharing your philosophies, sharing your principles that you're already helping people with. This is the key. When you coach people, you already got plenty to share because you're doing it in real life, in the real world. Right? And don't give yourself a timeline to like, hey, by next year, I got to be making 6 figures online. Like build the brand, right? Build the brand and be a useful person online on whatever platform you're on. But now if you choose to, because now you have proof of concept, you have money coming in. Let's say you do want to open up a gym. That's why I said two scenarios. I would go small. I've done a lot of research on this. Most profitable gyms in a coaching space, 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. Right. I would never. So if I didn't buy the building, I would not be in this big of a space. I wouldn't. The overhead is crazy. Like if I share some shit of what certain things cost, it'll blow your mind. Right. Like it'll blow your mind. But of course, but as an investment, I think it was one of the best moves. And I have 7 tenants. So I have a real estate business that 7 tenants pay rent to, including my own gym. So there's really 2 separate businesses. Right. So that's important. I would go 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, and I would focus on mostly semi-private and small group personal training. So for us, semi-private is like 4 people with completely customized programs. Small group is about 15, 16. If you have a smaller space, maybe it'd be like 12 to 14 people. General program that has a very, very good system of regressions, progression, lateralization, like it's dialed in. So again, it can serve a larger community. I would focus on those 2, and I'd have some really high-end one-on-one. Like, if you're doing one-on-one, dude, it's like you're getting your blood work done. You got your DEXA. You got, like, your nutrition dialed in, like maybe some even meal delivery service that you have plugged in, but you have very few clients. That's the way that I would go today. And I think it's what I recommend to most people that are in fitness, because I think growing out of places is a lot smarter than growing into places. I see this a lot. Yeah, man, we spent 400 grand. We have the best fucking equipment. We got Prime this, Jim Lecco, and I'm like, ooh, dope. What's your all in? And it's like, it's a lot, right? And it's like, so people are just going to come because it's a dope gym. I'm like, that's not going to happen because a lot of people now have dope gyms. Right. And you can't differentiate yourself necessarily just off of equipment. Like I'll never be able to outspend an Equinox or whoever else. Right. Like, so go smaller. You build, the 3 C's that I think are the most important when it comes to gym or coaching is number 1, coaching. Number 2, customer experience. Number 3, culture. That's the 3 C's. Right. You do those things exceptionally well, man, you will do fucking really well. Right. And you have to understand if you go into a gym If you're a business owner, you got to understand sales and marketing and systems. Like you have to. There's just no, those days are gone when you're like, well, man, but like the product and service is amazing. Yes, that's the buy-in, right? That's the buy-in. But if you want to build a long-term business, you can't not know business. Is just, and I see that mistake a lot where it's like, man, Luke, I'm great at what I do. That's all that's needed. Unfortunately not. Like you do have to know that stuff, right? So that's where I would start today. And here's the thing that most people will be surprised at. Like, what would be my number one strategy? Dude, this is what I'm so glad that I did a long time ago. I was doing speaking, but in person. So I was doing events at my own gym. Nobody put me on stage. I just did shit at my own place. Nutrition seminar, mobility seminar, how to lift seminar. I did it in 2014. I went 22 weeks straight when I did a lunch and learn, right? And it was basically, 5 people at a business, 12, 41. And then it was like, oh, Boeing engineers want to bring you in. Cool, 80, awesome. And then there's a real estate company, 7. I didn't give a fuck. Like I was just anywhere. I'm just speaking and becoming what Dean Jackson calls like 3 mile famous, right? Because nobody else was like doing that. Because of course, public speaking is people are afraid of it. And I was like, I'm going to lean into this thing. And at the end of the presentation, most will be nutrition, because when you're going to businesses, like you have to anticipate that most people aren't training. So if you're over there talking about like, hey, here's the R7 model, and we're going to, you're losing people. But if it's like, hey, here's how to, improve your nutrition in a simple way, it's going to give you more energy, lose weight, this, that, and the other. Everybody in the room is pretty much on board with that, right? And at the end, I say, hey, listen, guys, like I got, 8 spots to sit down with you, create a nutrition blueprint, help you with your fitness, with your nutrition. And here's a piece of paper, write down your name and number, and I'll reach out to you, right? And what would happen is like, one, I'd get leads then and there. But what will also happen is like 3 months later, Jenny, when she actually needs some help, she's finally ready, she hit me up because I was the person helping, being the expert, speaking in front of them. And because of social media and because of like, which I love, I think that it's very powerful, but people have like really stopped doing that. And it's, for brick and mortar in-person business, I think it's the cheat code right now is like being able to go speak in front of people. I have this thing called a 6x6 strategy. I teach coaches. I'm like, hey, talk to 6 people per day, 6 days a week, right? 36 conversations per week, 144 a month. If you, and by the way, like people are like, what do you mean? I go to Boom Boom, a coffee shop, and you see a person like, oh, dude, dope shoes. You sneakerhead? I'm a sneakerhead, man. Like, yeah, I got these, but start a conversation. Hey, do you live in the area? Yeah, actually, I work here. Like, I'm a remote worker. What do you do? Oh, cool. Like, do you train? Where do you train? Start having this conversation. And you don't force it, but if they're like, oh, yeah, I got a membership to LA Fitness, but I don't really go. Like, why don't you go? Like, well, I don't like that atmosphere, but I am trying to get in shape. Oh, man, like I actually own the gym down the street. Oh, wow, you do? You just have a fucking human conversation at a certain point in time. Hey, you know what? Let's do this. I'll pay for 3 of your sessions. How about that? What's your number? By the way, this is a little trick. If you have a conversation with somebody in mid-conversation, you just go like, actually, you know what? What's your number? It's 100% conversion rate. 100%.
I don't want to know why you know that. I feel like this is like Luka's relationship game mentorship that he's coming out with. Look, guys, no one's getting dates here. Middle of the conversation, just boom.
I'm speaking about generating leads here, guys. Damn it.
Sure. It's all the same at the end of the day.
Listen, what's so crazy though, when people grasp this and go like, you know what? I'll fucking do that. Next 30 days, they're like, dude, I got more leads than if I'm running Facebook ads, if I'm doing this, I'm doing that, right? So this in-person, like in a community, like these strategies are so powerful. Like we're right now running a campaign with these postcards with QR codes that a friend of mine that runs a marketing company is like, dude, we're crushing with this in the martial arts space, and it's working way better than, like, for instance, Facebook ads, right? And again, that 3 mile famous, I actually make a distinction, like you're a brick and mortar in-person coach, gym owner, or the online brand. Like I'm like, you could crush it here and never be known online, right? And have the best career, make a ton of money, and help a fuck ton of people. You could, legitimately, right? And the thing is, I definitely have a goal of the brand part and growing it because I really obviously want to educate and do online programs and whatnot. But I think that a lot of people are looking at these brand strategies for like social media, for like national brand, and they're missing the boat on like the local 3 Mile famous brick and mortar, how to grow your business. Right. And so I can speak to it because I do it, you know what I mean? Because like I only speak about the shit that I do. I don't want to be like, well, you know, theoretically, you could do this. And I really think it's a huge opportunity because you said if you started over, I would make a crazy focus on that 3 Mile famous strategies that I just mentioned, and then slowly build the brand online, right? Give it like, be patient, give it time, focus on the quality, you know, do work you're proud of, but not like, oh my God, in the next 90 days, I gotta get fucking XYZ coaching clients so I can, you know, be on a beach writing programs and shit, right? Like, which is not true. So yeah, that's a probably longer answer to the question, but some context.
How do you, when you working with younger coaches now who are in that position, like there's so many distractions, there's so many promising new trends. Like, you know, you talked about the YouTube sort of in its infancy and it kind of being the only show in town. Now with like, I don't know, is TikTok banned? Maybe it's not. Stories or reels, I don't know. My stuff's not like going to places anymore. Like, how do you, like, because you obviously have, you know, you have those two, as you said, like, you kind of have these two components. You have like you digitally, have your in person. How do you allocate your focus? How do you dedicate your time to like effectively and efficiently growing your digital presence, let alone like the brick and mortar? Like, how do you yourself do it, and how do you advise others to not get lost in sort of the trade winds of these new trends, and to be effective and to work on their communication and messaging and really grow their digital side?
I think you got to go to first principles. I mean, I really think you do. Because look, think about this. I don't know, 15 years ago, right? Like, where did you get your, you know, information or news? It was like, okay, TV, newspaper, magazines, so on and so forth, right? Now, so to me now, like, you know, radio is podcasts, right? But when you start understanding that you are the media channel, right? And like, my podcast is my radio, my YouTube is my TV, you know, my social media is, I don't know what that would be, but it's like a kind of like a reality TV version of TV, right? That's quicker and shorter. Your blog is your newspaper, right? Like, or your magazine. And once you understand that and you go, well, even back then, for somebody to read your stuff, it had to be what? Fucking good, right? It had to be entertaining and educational. Like, you know, to me, it's like edutainment, right? So that's first principles, is like, to get eyeballs, you have to have great content. Well, or it's like stupid fucking content. But I think for people that, you know, are in fitness, your goal should be to be useful and valuable, and for people to be like, man, this is really great. This is helping me. I want more of that from this person. So that's why I say this to say, a lot of people go like, hey, what's trending right now? What will go viral? What's the best platform? Rather than asking yourself, what is useful, valuable content that will help somebody, right? Because if that's your filter, you're going to do very well over time, right? And like, let me give you an example, right? So I had like a really bad back injury 15 years ago. And so one of the things that, like, you know, people for a while, like, oh, dude, you're a mobility guy. I'm like, no, I just do shit to make myself feel better, right? Like, but for example, if I put up like, hey, here's 6 drills I do every morning and it makes my back feel great, and like, it doesn't hurt, okay? Every person in America or that's on social that has irritation in the back, it's tight, it's hurting, whatever, that might be a thing that's going to make them go like, oh, let me check this guy out, whatever, right? They watched the video and said, these drills look fucking weird, but I'll do them, right? I'll do 2 of them. And they do the drill, and all of a sudden they're like, dude, this does feel like way better. Holy shit. Follow, subscribe, whatever it may be. But now there's what Ryan Dice calls relational equity, right? I've created some equity here because they're like, this person has helped me, even though I never met them face to face, skin to skin, right? And then I put out another thing and they're like, oh man, like, yeah, I do my RDLs wrong. This guy's showing how to do RDL, like, so I'm not feeling it in my back. Fuck, boop, boop, another bonus point. Okay. So that person now over time is getting all this relational equity and value. And then maybe I launch a program, making shit up, and I say, hey, like, here's how to build muscle, like in your lower body, if you've had a lot of back issues. And that person's like, well, holy shit, I want to build my lower body. I haven't been able to because my back's always hurt. But this guy's already helped me. I know he can help me some more. Purchase, right? And that's really what the game is in the grand scheme of things, right? And that's the first principle is instead of thinking about, look, there's nothing wrong with kind of figuring shit out. Like, but the reality is you'll figure it out by creating it. You know, something that like is working really well for you, Jordan, on your social media channels. I might try it and be like, not working. But it's like, oh, people love carousels. Oh, people love when I do a Q&A podcast sometimes more than when I have a guest. I didn't think that was going to be the case, but hey, let's do more of that. So it's just the creation is actually teaching you what to do more of, what your audience likes. Your audience is different than my audience is different than his audience, right? And so when you kind of let that go, like the whole fucking like stress and pressure of, oh my God, this has got to get XYZ amount of views. It's got to do this. It's got to do that. And you're just like, did I create work that I'm proud of? Did I create work that's helping my audience? And, you know, the better you know who your audience is, the easier it is to create, you know, stuff. But like for a new coach, who's your audience? Clients just like the clients you're already training. That's it. That's your fucking avatar. You don't even have to get like really granular with it. I always said like the way you find your avatar is like, hey, tell me the client that's so dope that you train him for free forever. And everybody's like, oh, dude, I got, you know, this person. Great. What would happen to your business if you had 100 people like them? Jesus Christ, I'd have fucking a lot of money and I'd have the best time. Okay. So create content for that person. Why did they come in? What are they struggling with? You know, what are their pain points? What would they like to achieve? Cool. Talk to that person and create all the content for that person over and over and over again of things that you're already doing with them and helping them with. And it's like, could it be that simple? Yes. And as you grow, you know, you kind of start figuring out other stuff, other opportunities pop open and doors, but it all stems from the fact that you created valuable stuff that's useful for your current audience, doing the shit that you're already doing in real life that you're good at, right? Like, and that's why I'm like, a lot of this stuff is smoke and mirrors. Go back to fucking first principles.
Now, you mentioned that you've been on stage 300 to 400 times, which is like, I mean, I think I speak a fair amount. And then again, I go on Instagram, like, oh, Luke is fucking, you know, somewhere doing something on. How do you, like, that being such a mainstay in your business, in your brand, public speaking is fear number one. Survey 1,000 people, death is number two, public speaking is number one. What has been the evolution of that process? Because I think it's like, you know, I think content creation, like you said earlier, makes you a better coach. Doing a presentation to me is like going on a stage, going in front of an audience that isn't curated, right? Or maybe you didn't curate. Maybe they're here to see the next guy. Maybe they're here to see the guy before you and they just couldn't get out of the room fast enough. And they're like, oh, fuck, I got to sit through. Like, you know, it's like that to me is the ultimate content creation is like, go ahead. This is the proving ground. How is your in-person speaking evolved over time? How did you feel about it when you first started? What advice did you get as, you know, you were kind of coming up doing these? Like, you wouldn't be doing them if you weren't good at them. People would stop fucking calling you if you were dog shit. Like, how do you approach that as a part of your business and brand?
It's like what's crazy is that, like, you know, when I came to the US to college, so this was a flip for me, and I'll tell this story because in Slovenia, it's like high school and college in Slovenia is way harder from a standpoint of how much you have to learn, right? It's like textbooks. It's fucking nuts, right? But in the US, it would be like, all right, you're going to do this thing and do a presentation for the class, you know, and I'm playing like, you put me in a basketball context, no problem, I'm good. You put me in front of a class, I'm like, you know, fuck. So that was my first exposure, and it made me like, I mean, for a while, it was like anything I had to present on, I was freaking the fuck out. A lot of like, you know, all that stuff. So that's where it started, where I started doing a little bit of like studying and research on like how to, you know, prepare yourself for speaking. Again, it goes back to like, man, I want to learn how to be better at this because I fucking hate the feeling of being so nervous and not doing a good job and so on and so forth. So I did Toastmasters. I know a lot of people, you know, did that kind of between studying some books on it and doing Toastmasters at first. That was a starting point. And then again, speaking locally, allowed me to like suck on a smaller scale and do it frequently. I recorded myself, by the way, like if anybody wants to kind of have a little cackle, you know, a lot of the nutrition seminars that I did, and too, like some of the nutrition stuff I talked about, I'm like cringing now, like when it's a 12-year-old nutrition seminar. But the lesson is I recorded it. So now I'm watching this again and going, oh my God, like what? You're saying so much, you're doing this so much. So I would watch and assess and go like, I got to do better next time, right? So I'm going to Toastmasters. I'm actually putting myself out there. I'm recording it to see how I'm doing and then repeat the process and just fucking get better, right? Now, eventually also Roger Love, which is Roger Love is Tony Robbins' speech coach and one of the top coaches for speaking in the world. You know, I ended up doing a bunch of courses. Then I ended up going to Mastermind. You know, going back to that watch and wallet thing, I was like, wanting to get better at speaking was important to me. So I put my time and my money into it. And just, I picked up the frequency of it. So here's a Tony Robbins story. Maybe most people have heard this or not, but when he, went from a Jim Rome event, and Jim Rome was like, hey, go speak, get the frequency of speaking up. And a lot of the people that were in that kind of like course with him / coaching with him, one guy spoke once every couple of weeks, one spoke once a month, one spoke once a week. Tony Robbins like scheduled like 12 speaking gigs per week. He was doing like 2 a days and shit, right? So by the end of the year, he was like light years ahead of everybody else because he just fell forward so much faster and his feedback loop was faster. So now I didn't do 2 a day, but man, I did a fucking lot, right? So my feedback loop was fast. Like, oh, I'm not doing this that well. Let me get a little bit better. Boom, boom, boom. Always filming. Again, whether it was Toastmasters or when I was in the Roger Love thing, I'd do it like me and Jay Ferrugia had this thing, and we still do, where we'd assess each other's like, man, we'd speak at the same events. He'd watch me, take notes afterwards, be like, dude, you killed it with that joke, and I liked how you did that. But like, hey, man, you're doing too much of this, doing too much of that, doing too much of this. Next time, try to do this. And we still do this shit, right? But it was being comfortable with somebody going like, hey, man, like, this is what you're not doing well, and just making it better. And everybody has that opportunity because, the big mistake that people make is like, I'm prepping and waiting for somebody to put me in a stage. And it's like, no, like, create your own stage. Again, people like small businesses and organizations locally are looking for people to speak all the fucking time. They actually can't get enough people to do it, right? So if you make, I say like block out 30 minutes per week, email and call. For every 20 that you make, you're going to get 2 to 3. Like, and this is just, again, over 20 years of me doing this and coaching other people too. That's about the number. Like, you're going to get about 10%-ish, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes more, sometimes less. But 20 calls and emails, 2 speaking gigs. Do 1 to 2 a month. By the end of the year, you're going to be significantly better because guess what? You're going to want to be prepared when you get there. You're not just going to fucking show up and just not be prepared. So I would create the presentation, and all the lunch and learns, I did the same prezo. So those 22 weeks that I said in 2014, that was 22 of the same presentation. By then, bro, I was ShamWowing that shit. You know what I mean? Like, right. Hey, buy one today in the next 5 minutes, I'll give you fucking 2. It's like I was rocking with it. But again, practice the skill. Even stuff like speak to your friend, give them like the 5-10 minute presentation pitch, do a TED talk for them, right? And like get feedback. Like it's just that people don't want to be exposed to feedback and, essentially criticism and coaching. And so then what you do is you fucking keep practicing the bad thing. It's the same thing with coaching, right? Like you don't have a coach. You're not in environments where people can correct you and give you helpful feedback. And then you say some shit like, well, I've been coaching for 4 years. I'm like, man, you've been doing a fucking dumb thing for 4 years, thousands of times over. You're really good at it. Like that's not good. And I think that's the power of like the reason why I'm still such a big, hardcore fan of this. And it's becoming more rare, right? Like the people go to live events. Like when you do a pre-script live, and by the way, doesn't take away from the quality of everything online. Because I love their shits online. But you can't tell me that you don't get 5 to 10 times more when you're there with the coach, seeing what they're doing, how they're coaching in Q. And you can ask them right then and there, dude, why did you do that? What do you think about that? 3-day fucking event, you're coming back going like, holy shit, dude. Good. Now go apply. Right? It just speeds up. If you want, cheat codes, like that's the cheat code.
Yeah. It's now, how do you, like, what are the cheat codes you're looking for now? Like, you've assessed, you've become aware, you've improved upon so many different skills and so many facets of business. Like, what do you look at now on your horizon of like, okay, these are the areas where I'm putting my watch and wallet?
Continuing, so like going back to first principles, like this is a 4-step process for me. Like when it comes to learning, right? It's like learn, apply, reflect, course correct, repeat forever, right? And now it's just like I'm narrowing what I'm doing that on. Coaching, always and forever. Always, like, dude, if I showed you my fucking screen share of like my tabs open, I don't know if you're a big tab opener, dude. I got fucking 100 tabs open. And it's like course, book, but and like I study every night, like every fucking night, and whether it's 20 minutes or an hour, Sundays, a lot of times I have like a 2-3 hour block of learning, and like new stuff, right? Like, and then I'm trying to take it back that next week and apply it. So coaching and everything that goes under the umbrella of coaching, right? So that's one of the things. Like the thinking side of business. I know this will sound weird, but like one of my favorite business books is by Keith J. Cunningham. It's called The Road Less Stupid. Okay, dude, if you haven't read it, you got to fucking read this book. I always get anxiety reading it because there's a lot of questions in the book that trigger me, right? Because it's like stuff I'm fucking up on or whatever. But it talks about thinking time. Like every person that's been extremely successful, like blocked out time to think, and so on a weekly basis, usually it's actually a Friday, it'll be today, like I write 1 or 2 questions out and then I answer those questions, right? So, and it might be about a topic. I'm like, okay, what's the overarching big picture strategy for Vigor the gym in our community for 2024, right? And then I'd start writing, right? I'm answering that question. I'm thinking like, oh, fucking, okay, cool. So that way, because, now I can get all this stuff out and then distill it into a couple of points. And then those points might lead me to what I need to learn. Okay. So what I need to learn might be like, which is truly, I like bought a studio when I got the courses. I was like, I want to do live events here at Vigor, but then stream them and actually put ads behind it just for this fucking area. Right? Because it's almost like we're putting stuff on steroids. I don't know. There's 40, 50 people here at the nutrition seminar, but then there's maybe hundreds watching it live, but then thousands will watch it over the course of time. And then we can just turn it into an ad for somebody coming in and sitting down with us. Right? And so, okay, cool. Now let me go learn how to do that. Let me find a person that can help with it. But it starts with thinking time. Okay. Because again, like I have to solve some problems to get where I want to go in that GPS. Another thing might be, again, like the marketplace is changing with hiring. So if you're a gym owner and you're listening to this, you're like, fuck yeah, I know it is. Shit's way different than it used to be, right? So it's like, okay, well, how can I better market to coaches, the types of coaches that I want to bring in? And I know that our superpower, it's not like we can pay you more than an Equinox or whatever else it may be. Like, man, we have very competitive pay, but it's like, it's going to be growth, mentorship, and education. Like you cannot touch us on that side of things, right? Cool. So how do I craft now, not marketing for the client, but marketing for the coach to bring them in? But the thing is, that's going to lead me down like the learning stuff, right? And I might go find a course. I might go find a book. And then I'm going to learn, apply, reflect, course correct, right? So again, it's like, I would look at these buckets because as you now see, as like fucking, I'm switching my hats on throughout the day quite a bit, right? And I do think like John Berardi taught me this. John Berardi's been a great friend for a long time and been very helpful in like thinking a lot of things through. And he said, look, man, like one of the most powerful things that you got to learn in life is transitions. And when he said that to me initially, I was like, what do you mean? Explain that to me, transitions. Look, again, first principle, transitions. He's like, well, when I come home from like I'm at the meeting, we're talking about the future of the business, and then I'm driving home, and then I'm going to come home, and now I got to be a dad. Transition, right? I have to be able to transition into now this role, like leaving the other shit behind. Okay. Or it's like, listen, even in training, right? Fucking like I go hardcore. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to cool down. I'm going to go into recovery mode. I'm going to transition now to coaching. Right. And people aren't very good at that. So meaning like at work, they think about home. At home, they think about work. When they're training, they think about fucking this, whatever, right? Like they're never where their feet are. And for me, like one of the things that helps, and I think I've certainly not mastered it, but I think I've become pretty fucking good at it, is like, you'll see me like, you know, be done with the show and then have a little, like right before we got on, like, all right, I got fucking 2 hours with my NFL guys and like, I'm fucking there, right? Boom. And then that's going to be done. And I got to meet, I'm sitting down with the coach to see if they're a good fit for the gym. Okay, cool. Transition. All right, now I'm going to do the ShamWow fucking, because we're going to do like Trey's coming in and we're shooting 4 or 5 YouTube videos, right? So being able to leave the thing behind, transition, and again, like coming home, and it's like, this is where my girl, if she would listen to this show, she'd be like, motherfucker, you ain't great at this yet. I'm like, correct. Coming home and like, hey, baby, like this, you know, all my focus is on you all the time. I'm not there yet. Like there's days where I do it, but again, I'm practicing, right? I'm getting better at this stuff. But that's a very, very, very powerful, like superpower, you know what I mean? Because the person that can be more focused, right, is going to win over time. So if I can focus on this and then focus on that and focus on this and focus on this over time, like, and you're all over the place, you know, in 1 month, I'm getting 6 months of work done. I'm 6X ahead. So I think that's you know, and because people always say, well, how do you do it? Like, well, you practice just like you fucking can practice anything else. You have to be intentional about it. You know, I still like one of my biggest kind of like weird things that I still do that made me really fucking good at coaching. I still do. I have boxes of them at home, like these 4x6 cards from Staples, right? And the night before I'd write out like all type, like for instance, what story am I going to tell in my group trainings? I always tell a story at the end, right? Like we do a team huddle, like tell a story, we bring it in. And I'd have, you know, I'm reading some, writing the stories down. I'm like, oh, I'm going to tell this story tomorrow. Cool. Oh shit, it's Mike Moran's birthday tomorrow. Okay, make sure you fucking get him a smoothie from Fit Bar. Hey, Jenny's fucking son scored his first goal in soccer. Like I saw that. Cool, I'm going to say that. Oh, I learned this new coaching cue. When we do small group and I'm teaching this single leg elevated fucking front foot elevated split squat, I'm going to use that coach. Like I would have like front and back 4x6 card is like my second brain, right? I got it in my pocket. Like, so, my 4 PMs are coming in. Okay, I got John like messed up his knee playing soccer, can't do any type of deep flexion. Okay, sprinter lunge instead of reverse lunge. Cool, right? And the thing is, so now I'm on point. Hey, everybody, shout out to Mike Moran, the motherfucker 72 is still kicking. Psych, he's not, you know, like, hey, yeah, right? But it's like, I have all these things on here that are kind of giving me that, like that focus for the day where I'm just hitting wins, you know what I mean? And I'm creating that customer experience. And like, I'm that learning that I did, I'm now applying it. And by the way, you know, people will be like, can you do it on your phone? Yeah, like I got stuff on my phone, but the 4x6 card was like a physical thing. Like literally I would go, okay, cool, boom, back, and I'm back at it. And when you do that thousands of times, right? Like it's ingrained, it's practice. It's the practice that I was talking about. Give yourself that 4x6 card and be like, give yourself a focus. Hey, did you say everybody's name 4 times during this session? Did you, in a group setting, did you coach everybody individually 3 times, right? I have this model of general, specific, individual, right? General coaching cue, specific coaching cue, individual coaching cue. And like, if I got a group of 20, I'm moving around. Hey, tall spine. Think like somebody's pulling you by a spring on the crown of the head. Okay, that's going to go for a push-up, a TRX row, a goblet squat, a RDL. That's a general cue. I'm coaching everybody. Kettlebell deadlift station. Guys, on the kettlebell deadlifts, make sure you rip that bell apart. Push the ground away. Don't pull it. Push, right? That's a specific cue. Then I go to individual, and I'm like, hey, John, your knees are flying forward. You're squatting that deadlift. I'm going to block your knees right here. Great job pushing your hips back. Boom. Specific cue to John. And I'm back to general. And I'm doing that throughout the whole session, right? And I'm just like, pop. And then people were, because that's how our group training became, you know, famous in the area. Like people were like, dude, this one fucking Eastern European guy is weird, man. Like, there's 20 people. Right? I feel like he's fucking there all the time. Like, I can't. He's like always there, but he's not. But he is. But it's like, It's like one-on-one training, but it's not. But the thing is, it was all this practice with intentionality, that then builds that skill set. And then, you can wake up in the middle of the night and do that shit because you've trained it so much.
Now, how do people get involved with what you're doing? I feel like, I don't talk business much. I don't bring people on to talk business much because I don't think many people do it like you. For those interested in kind of getting a hold of you coming out and in person, what's the best way to reach you?
I mean, honestly, like I'm a very responsive person, right? Which may be it's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing, right? Because if you DM me, like I'll message you back and it's not a fucking bot. But like the places that, I have a website, it's lukahocevar.com, where I have my courses and workshops, which is basically for coaches to like become better coaches, become better at the business of coaching. So just my name, .com. If you go to YouTube, obviously you can get content there, Vigor Life Podcast. But directly, like if you're interested in any type of coaching on the business side of things, just hit me directly because we'll jump on a call and whatnot. But I share, all the stuff that I do. So the educational, like I talk to two people essentially, right? Three, I'm lying. So Athlete for Life, which is, it's kind of like my model of training. It's not like, that's just the way that I've always trained. I train my clients, right? Whereas like they're like look, feel, and perform like an athlete without the nagging aches and pains, right? That's the tagline. So that's the online programs and stuff that I do when it comes to training. Then there's the aspect of helping coaches be better coaches and be better at the business of coaching. Those two things. And so again, like that's kind of like the three pockets of what I teach. And if you go on my social media, on the podcast, on YouTube, like that's the content that essentially I share. And there's a fuck ton of it. And I create a lot. So like, there's a lot there to learn if you're not in a space where you can't hire or do a mentorship or coaching. But here was what I will say. This year, we're doing it again, the Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Summit. It's October 10th to 12th in Seattle/Renton, Washington, right down the street from where the gym is. One day it's at the gym, 2 days is at the this beautiful Hyatt Regency Hotel right on the lake. And it is an absolutely insane lineup. So if you're a coach and you're like, man, I want to take shit to the next level, become a better coach, better business of coaching, and connect with like the best of the best, you got to be at this event. I mean, look, and obviously I'm biased because I put the event on, but it's it's kind of a cool thing because there's very few events that go on for 10 years, right? This is our 7th event in 10 years. It's a 10-year anniversary. And it's always interesting because I talk to brand sponsors and stuff like that. And at the end, they realize, we're basically a small gym in Renton that puts on this event that's, one of the kind of most kind of recognized events now on the quality, like in the industry. And I think that's a good example of what I said earlier, which is like, man, do something like that you're proud of that fucking creates so much value that it blows people's minds. And if that's your intent, I promise you a lot of great things will happen for you. And if you come to that event, I think that you'll get, corny fucking 10x the value, but it really, really is pretty damn phenomenal. So check that out. If you just put Vigor Ground Summit 2024 in Google, you don't just put that in fucking Google. The first thing that pops up is that. So you can check it out there.
Yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes, man. I'm gonna listen to this one back. A ton of gems, like every time I get to talk to you. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're the busiest person I've ever met, so it means a lot for you to take the hour and have a chat, man. I really appreciate it.
Dude, always my pleasure. Always my pleasure, brother.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.